All right, thank you. Thank you so much for being here tonight. My name is Andreea Matson. I work at George Smith Partners, which is a real estate investment bank. I typically focus on raising both debt and equity for real estate owners and developers. I focus a lot on Philly, the DMV, basically the East Coast, and I'm a native New Yorker. So Derek made a grave mistake because he oversold. In real estate, you never oversell, okay? You overdeliver. So hopefully, we will have a very good presentation for you all. And hopefully it'll be better than the Eagles' loss. So I am a New Yorker. I know, we're all hurting. Yeah, Sundays are for the birds. So anyway, just very briefly, one of the main components that we're going to be discussing is the power of real estate ownership, which is why we're all here, presumably. Kind of what it means, how it can help you create wealth, and how just, it appreciates in value. And real estate is one of those things that once you have it, once you own it and you take care of it, it will give you income. So we're going to go over that. Just a few differentiating points between where your business operates. Do you use it? There are just differences that lenders are going to be looking for if you are looking at an income-producing real estate acquisition. Okay, so again, just generally, I'm sure you all know a lot of this stuff. What is income-producing real estate? There are different definitions based on, commercial and like a 1 to 4 family unit apartment, that might not be considered commercial. More than 4, it might be considered commercial. So some differences like that. What's the difference between a loan and equity, which again, I'm sure this is familiar to many of you, and kind of just understanding the mechanics of lending. So what will a lender be looking for when you are presenting a loan application? What questions will they ask? What do you need to have in an application? Which, again, Derek mentioned that they're also accepting applications, and hopefully this is information that you can use for future acquisitions. First of all, who is George Smith? He is no longer with us, but he was one of the original investment bankers who brought investment banking to the West Coast. It is originally an LA headquartered investment bank focused on real estate. Over the years, we have grown nationally. We have 2 headquarters now. We work out of New York City. And on average, we raise over $5 billion in debt and equity every single year. So this varies by asset class, geography. We're not constrained on where we target, who our clients are and anything like that. Okay, so I think, hold on, did we? Yeah, so now I'm gonna pass it over to Chandana, who will introduce herself and what she does. I focus more on the origination side. So I work directly with developers and owners, and I meet with them all the time, and I understand their pain points. Her job is more technical, and I could never do it, to be honest with you. And I'm gonna pass the mic over to her, and she will go into what she does.
Thank you. It's nice to meet all of you. My name is Chandana Reddy, and I'm an associate at George Smith Partners. I work mostly on the execution and marketing of the deals that they bring in. So I'm mostly connected to the capital providers, institutional capital providers, like lenders, investors, like all types of financing and, contacts for them. Like I pitch the deals to them, and I underwrite the deals or the ideas that the developers or any of you might have, and you think, okay, I need financing for this, but you don't know how to present it, in an institutional way, like for big deals too, like let's say 100-unit multifamily or a luxury condo building in New York City, which might need $300 million loan. Like you have the idea, you know the team, you know the people, but you don't know how to get the financing. That's where I help, and Andrea and our firm too. My background, I am an architect. I worked as an architect and interior design for 2 years, and then I got my master's degree from NYU in real estate finance. Now I work in real estate finance. I've also worked with a couple of developers in New York City, and then finally made the switch over to finance. Okay. Today, obviously, we're not going to talk about the deals that we do generally every day, but we are more focused on what you can actually do and, like small businesses in like a laundromat or a 5-unit multifamily, which is actually doable, like a single unit retail store, such things. There is obviously, everybody knows this, there's 2 types of money at the top level, at the high level, debt and equity. Debt is a borrowed money, you pay back. Usually comes from a bank or a lender or a debt fund. You probably will not go to a debt fund, but that is more, like people go to debt funds these days more than banks for like bigger projects, but you will probably go to banks, which is fine because banks are more willing to provide small loans, $1 million, $2 million, which a debt fund will not do because that is not profitable for their funds. And also to lower the cost of capital. And obviously lenders always gets paid before the owner can take their profits from the projects. And if you don't pay, they're going to take your property. That's the deal with any debt. And equity, say there is $1 million project, you only have $200K of your own money. And you're going to be the operator, you're the general partner, you will build the building, you'll operate the building, you take care of everything. But you will get a debt for, say, $600K. How do you fill in the gap, right? So there are different types, but you still want to do the project. That doesn't mean, okay, you have this gap, doesn't mean that you're going to stop the project. You still want to do it, but how do you do it? You have to get creative. You get partners, maybe your friends and family who will be, we call them limited partners or LP equity, or it could be JV equity, like joint venture, where they'll have more operational rights. Whereas an LP will like give you the money and they just stand back. They're like, we trust you with our money, just give us the returns, you know, when the project matures, or in a multifamily when it leased up and you're getting the cash flow, you can give us like our share or profits then. We'll stand back, give you the money. In JV, they give you the money, they also want to be like involved in a day-to-day operations a little bit. And then there are other types of debt, which is like there is a senior debt, which is your main debt, which is like the big loan.
Primary mortgage.
Primary mortgage, yes. And then there are like, we'll get to that. There are like smaller debt and preferred equity stuff. We'll get to that.
And then one more quick point to the previous slide. When we say cost of capital, typically that refers to how much you have to pay. Oh, right. That refers to how much you have to pay to access this money. So a bank, when you get a mortgage, they're going to assign you an interest rate. So that is how much it costs you to secure that money, and that's how the bank makes money. So maybe it's 8%. Let's just, or 9.2 if we're here at Jumpstart.
It's even lower now.
Oh.
8.6.
Okay. So we're sharpening the pencils here. So 8.6, okay. In your mind, you're thinking that basically for every dollar, right, that you borrow at that rate, you need to pay 8.6% of that back. Okay, that could be monthly. There are different ways that you can pay it back, but at the end of the day, your responsibility is 8.6%. On the equity side, it can vary dramatically. So an equity partner can say, I want 20% of your total project. So that is going to cost you 20%. So when you're looking at cost of capital, the project is $1 million. That's not going to change. What changes long term, and this is where you have to start thinking about long-term calculation, is, okay, my bank is costing me 8%. I have some guy that I met who's going to charge me 20% for equity. Equity is going to be probably a little bit more costly because it's riskier. So that's how you have to think about understanding like the cost associated with this investment. And when we say in real estate cost of capital, that's kind of what we're referring to. Understanding the different interest rates and the different ownership structure that is basically that you're giving up essentially to have this outside investor come in and participate in the deal to bring it to life. Okay, so quickly, debt, okay. Mortgage, a business loan, if you own your own home, you're a private owner, you pay a mortgage to the bank, maybe it's TD, it could be anyone, but they expect their money every single month. And you have an obligation, you took that mortgage out, it is your duty to pay it back. And what happens if you don't pay? That's right, yeah, and they don't care. Do they care? No, they're taking that back. So it's a legal promise to pay. Now, this right here, this is what you have to demonstrate in commercial real estate to be approved for a loan. Your income. If you as an individual are buying one piece of income producing real estate, it doesn't matter what it is, your background matters too. They have to know that you're good for the money. Your credit, what's your credit score? Again, that kind of indicates your ability to repay the loan. The property's income. So we have a little exercise later on. How much money does this property make, and can that income support the loan that you're taking out? your down payment. The more money that you put down, the lower, in theory, the lower your mortgage needs to be. So it's just a balancing act.
So your property's income, it's not just the income, your development plan should make sense, right? You cannot build like an office tower in the suburbs. The only thing that will make sense there is a multifamily. Like the lender sees, like market always matters, like location, location, location. That's all about real estate, right? Like it should make sense with the people who are there, the demographics, the market, and the location, and the potential. They also look at, you know, like let's say you plan that, okay, I want to like build 5-unit multifamily right here in Germantown, right? You have to look at other multifamily. Are there any multifamily? Is there a need for this multifamily? Are there people that would want to rent this property? All of these, you know, other external factors will support your property's future income. Based on that, you will get the loan because the deal or the plan just makes sense. It works.
Right, and just one more point to that. A loan is typically a 5 or 10-year obligation. So if you can't concretely demonstrate that we have a plan right here on paper and we've done the research, you can't just, you know, you have to actually do the research. If every 5-unit multifamily project in this neighborhood is on Zillow, they're going to look into that and say, okay, well, maybe this is not the right neighborhood, this is not the right product for this. So that's where, you know, when you're considering acquiring a property, that is one of the things I have to look at. Will this make money long term? Not only for you to generate income off it, but just to pay your mortgage, like baseline, because again, they're taking it back. So that's yeah. Okay, so I'll start a little bit on why you should use debt. And I know that growing up, debt was a taboo word in my household. Credit cards were taboo in my household. Debt is actually, when used well, it is a very powerful tool to build your wealth. Why is that? Oftentimes, when you are getting a mortgage from a bank, your rate is going to be lower than any other type of financial instrument on the market, like an equity partner. Because remember, cost of capital for equity is a lot higher. So you are able, if you secure a good mortgage, you're able to use the cash that you save that you would have used for the equity and invest it in something else that will give you higher returns. So it's just a matter of understanding how to invest your money, when to use debt. So if you want to.
And what is a good debt, right? Like how do you save on cost of capital? Interest rates. And interest rates depend on the risk of your project. Construction projects like ground up construction, you have like a raw dirt and you're going to build it from the ground up, is always going to cost more because there is more risk. That building or the asset that you're talking about does not exist yet. It exists in your imagination. It's going to be there in the future, but it does not right now. So number of things could go wrong. There could be construction delays or, I don't know, supply chain issues or anything, weather, you know, like weather, snow, anything could like halt your construction and you will never complete the construction within the timeline that you thought you would. And that would, again, increase your cost of capital because you have to keep paying the interest till you pay back your mortgage, right? You have to account for a number of things. That is why most people will say acquisition and development, like just buy an existing property, like in a bad condition and just do some renovation work on it and just rent it out. It's easier, less risky, and your cost of capital or your interest rate will be less, so you save less money. Like you pay less money, you save more money.
Right.
Which, over the course of the mortgage, which you're now that, and then there are other types of mortgage where they also pay you they include the interest reserves in their whole mortgage amount. Let's say 24 million. Out of the 24 million, you are only going to use 21 million for your construction, whatever, and the 2 million is the interest reserve, which the lender will include it in their, you know, like the final loan amount. So you're literally not paying anything and building this using their money to pay them back their interest rate. And while maybe you had $2 million, you invested $1 million in this project and you could take the other million and invest it somewhere else, it is basically free money. but you have to make make sure that you complete it on time and you rent it out to the right people, and there's cash flow. Income is very important, cash flow.
So we've kind of gone over this a little bit, but your payments are due. The income that you produce can fluctuate due to things that are completely out of your control. Like when we were shut down during COVID, I don't think many of us were staying in hotels. Probably not. So the hotel industry during that time suffered, and no one's fault. It was just, a result of our environment that we were in at that time. Unfortunately, the lenders, I don't really think they cared very much, and we know they didn't. So they still expected whatever they were owed every single month by all of the hotel companies. So when things like that happen, you as the owner, you need to be prepared to assume that risk. And then, missed payments can damage your credit, and the risk of foreclosure is real. So it's not bad if it is used responsibly and you know how to incorporate it into your investment strategy. Okay, so equity, I think, is kind of the hot topic for a lot of people because it can mean different things. So equity, in short, is essentially the down payment, the cash that you're putting down when you're buying a piece of real estate. However, it can also be money from a partner. We discussed a little bit like LP partners who, again, they're hands off. They will give you the money if you are this is more, when we're looking at institutional real estate deals, they'll say, okay, maybe I'm a family office or I'm a pension fund. I want to make sure that the cash that I'm giving you, I'm giving it to someone who knows what they're doing. It's going to cost a lot down the line, but I don't want to be involved in the day-to-day operation. So outside partner, people within your network, you can go to we call it friends and family, you raise money that way. Equity also implies ownership. So when you take a loan out, in theory, they could possess the property if it goes bad, but you have complete ownership over the property. When you're receiving equity, you are sacrificing ownership. So when would you use equity? Maybe you personally don't have enough money. Okay, the loan payments would be too high. You want to lower that payment risk when it comes to a loan. However, you might wind up giving up some of your control. Okay, so when does equity reliance become a problem? So it helps. Maybe you don't have enough cash. Okay, we've gone over that. However, there is no free lunch. So equity drives real estate transactions, but it is not free money. Every dollar you get, whether it's debt or equity, you have some obligation to that dollar to grow it, either for the bank, for yourself, or for your equity partners. There are conditions and expectations. Same with debt. This is true of debt too. So where it changes is control, ownerships, and profit. So maybe you have a partner who comes in and says, I want 50% of your profits. I'm going to give you $100,000, but for the next 5 years, I'm going to take 50% of money off the top. You have to decide, is that worth it for you? And maybe it is. I'm not saying it's not, but that's one way that you could lose control when you are too reliant on equity. Anything else?
I mean, it also matters, like choosing debt or equity, between debt or equity also matters on the type of income that you have from the asset. If it's let's say there is a hotel that you buy, which is cash flowing currently, it has been in business for, let's say, last 5 years, but you're going to renovate it, but you're not going to completely shut down the hotel. So you still have some cash flow to pay your interest on debt. So in this case, debt makes sense, right? Because you have the cash flow to pay for your interest. And then for a ground up project where there is no cash flow at all for 2 years till you complete the construction, or 3 years till you need at least 12 months to lease it up completely, 100 units. In that case, equity makes sense because equity does not ask for payments upfront as soon as they give it out, right? So you have to decide on what kind of project you're doing and what makes more sense for you personally. This is like the heart of any real estate deal, capital stack. So there is debt and equity at the top, two major, two different types of financing. And then something in the middle, what we call a structured finance, that's where that comes in when you fall short of debt or equity, or there's a gap in financing. There's mezzanine debt, which is also called a subordinate debt, which sits behind your primary mortgage or senior loan. And in equity, there's something called as preferred equity. It's an equity, but you still pay interest on it. Or in some cases, it's accrued till like, I don't know, till it depends again. The terms are very flexible here. Equity terms are always very flexible. Every company will come up with their own terms. It is accrued till you sell the property, or it is accrued till the property starts cash flowing. Yeah, like a capital event. So it varies. So these are like the four major equity financing types that you need to know. Most deals get done with this, and for like a small to medium scale deals, this is it. Yeah, really.
And the pyramid we have here, so senior debt is at the bottom, and the pyramid arrow's at the top. So basically what that means is if something happens to the property, senior debt gets paid first. You go up, you go up, you go up. Equity is the riskiest investment because if something happens to the investment itself, that guy at the top, he might not get paid even a penny back. So that's why when you're looking at, debt, equity, that's why you're sacrificing so much to get an equity investment because it's the riskiest.
One more thing, it is not easy to get equity. Let's say you have no friends or family who's willing to give you money. You have to go out and raise equity. Equity is the hardest to get and it is expensive. And why? Because it is the riskiest. Whoever is giving you the money, if you want to get bigger equity check, make sure you have enough experience doing what you're doing. Don't go out saying, okay, I want whatever percentage of equity for my first project, and your equity partner is going to ask you, okay, what experience do you have? Can you show me your what you've done in the past so that I can see and believe you that you can do it in the future too, so that way that gives them comfort. Okay, I can this person is reliable, he's done it before. Only then you're going to get the equity. So I would say your starting projects, 1, 2, 3 projects, rely on debt. It's going to be very impossible to get equity unless you build that track record or portfolio of your reputation. Yeah.
Okay, so why are we using what when we're building out our capital stack? So again, borrowed money, you have more control over the asset. You can determine the future, you can determine the trajectory, you can determine if it's a multifamily asset, how you're going to lease it up. You have control to basically figure out how you're going to make money. And that can be very liberating, but it can also be very, very challenging. On the other hand, it lets you keep more of your equity. Remember, we just said equity is really hard to raise. So it lets you keep more of that money in your pocket that you can invest in other things, use it personally, the like. Increases your buying power. Okay, if you have, just quick little math, if you have 2 properties that are $500,000 each, and you have $500,000, you could put in $250,000 into one and have a 50% loan on the other one and do the same thing for the second property, instead of buying the first one in all cash. So now with the same amount of money, you've doubled your assets under management, which is what we call it in real estate. So that is how you can kind of decide what's worth it for you, what do you want to buy, and how do you want to allocate your own equity. Again, when you take on a lot of, we call it, if you're too levered, that means that the cash that your property is producing cannot cover your mortgage. That means that you have to increase your income or figure out another way to pay. So too much leverage also increases your risk. And ultimately, if you're really too reliant on debt and you become very over-levered, that's when the risk of default becomes a reality. Anything else?
Also keep an eye on the market and the interest rates.
Right.
Most senior lenders will do floating rate because they don't want to do a fixed rate and then there is SOFR or the treasuries are increasing and they don't want to be at a loss. It is always floating, so always just read and know the market, where it is going, where the rates are going. That's always helpful.
Okay, so just really quickly, understanding the different risk and return profiles on the capital stack. So we kind of said senior debt is at the bottom of the pyramid there. In any sort of negative event, they get paid first. The return for them on the investment side as part of their strategy, the return is lower because the risk is lower. And it's secured by the property. So again, they're taking the keys. If something goes wrong, that's who the keys go to. That middle part of the stack, like that middle chunk there, medium risk, okay? So obviously the idea is and there are very specific kinds of partners who invest in that strategy. It's not going to be your regular bank. There are very specific groups who are, experienced in this, and they understand where they fall, kind of if something goes wrong. Okay, so they get paid after. Higher return, meaning they charge more to give you that money. So again, cost of capital, okay? The cost of capital for this is a little bit higher, not as high as equity. Again, equity is going to cost you the most, whether it's an actual part of the asset itself, how much money you're making, that can vary, but that is going to cost you the most. And if it performs poorly, they're kind of stuck with the possibility that they will make no money off that investment.
I mean, you might be thinking, why would people even give out equity if it is so risky? Because they also make that much money if the project goes well, like 2 times, 5 times. Like I invest $50,000 today, trusting that, okay, you will actually deliver what you say you are going to. And my money could, for all I know, could be like 5x. Generally, all equity partners look for 2x to 3x multiple, like that many times that their money will grow, which it will. That's why people invest in real estate. But you have to be a good, operating partner to be able to make that happen.
Okay, so these are, here, I'll let you.
Okay. So these are the 4 things you really need to know when you want to take debt on: LTC, LTV, debt yield, and DSCR, debt service coverage ratio. So loan to cost is, your project budget is $2 million, and the debt is only going to cover generally from 65%. It's 65%. If they stretch a little, we call it a stretch senior, 70 to 75%. That's all they're ever going to give you. The rest of it, you have to figure out with your own money and with other equity, other partners, whatever it is. So you need to make sure that, okay, what is your loan to cost? And is this, can this lender give me that much money, like 70% loan to cost, 65% loan to cost? Okay, no, I want something higher, like I want 75% loan to cost, which is stretching it. You have to make sure, okay, that you, just for your knowledge, okay, how much is my loan amount? Okay, it is 75% of my cost, or 65% of my budget or cost. And then there is loan to value. This comes in, so value of your property, which is not even there yet, or it's the future value, right? So your loan is valued against your future value of your property. Generally, again, this also varies from 65% to 75%. If it is, then you think, okay, this property that I'm renovating right now is going to be $15 million in 2 years or 3 years from now. And let's say your loan is whatever it is. It should match up. Okay, it is 75% of the value that I'm thinking it will be in 3 years. Then you're good. If it is between 65 and 75, you're good. And then we have debt yield. Debt yield is based on the income that you think your property can produce and against the loan amount. Okay, it is there's an example, your property is producing 80K and your loan is 800K, that is 10% debt yield. And we have debt service coverage ratio. This measures if the property makes enough to pay your monthly mortgages. It always has to be 1x, more than 1x. Generally, lenders look for 1.2x, but yes, it has to be 1 over. It cannot be less than that. And how do you calculate that? It's your net operating income divided by your annual debt payments. I think these are the 4 major and main metrics that you need to know. Just for yourself, your lenders will calculate it. They know it all. You need to know it too. Obviously, I'm sure you know how to calculate monthly payments, 6% for 600K loan for 25 years. That's what you pay monthly. And then there is just interest only. Then there are loans like where they say, okay, we'll charge you interest only till you finish your renovations or constructions for the first 2 years. Then we start amortizing. So when it starts amortizing, there's like a different formula for that. You stop paying both principal and interest, but in the beginning you pay more interest so that the bank will cover all their, take all their interest, and then you stop paying more principal. That's how it works. Then there is income to expense ratio. Example, multifamily, you have rents, income from rents, then just thinking about New York City, then there's like bike storage, then you have your amenities, like business rooms, whatever, parking, yes, most multifamily apartment buildings in New York City has this. And then there are costs. Obviously, you're not only just getting the income to run these buildings, you need to have like a doorman. That's a cost. Then there are utilities like your water, electric, whatever, gas. You have to pay for that. And then for your there's trash, like you have to pay for like the trash man to collect your trash and whatever. Then there are like people who clean your floors, like outside everything. There's like so much cost that go into running these buildings. So your income to expense ratio should be, I think it's like 35%. Yes, 30 to 35%. Like that's like the standard we look for. If it is lower than that, it makes lenders suspicious. Like, why is it lower? Like,
it indicates that you are paying, maybe you're paying too much to cover for some of your expenses, or you're not properly, maybe you're not leasing the apartments the way you should be. So it indicates that something is wrong with either how you make money or how you spend money.
Yeah. Then I'm sure you know about gross expense. So gross income is like the top line item, like
every single thing that gives you money. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be rent. It
Yeah.
can be, like we said, parking.
Like there's 100
Yes.
units, you've only leased 50 for now, but gross income is that what would be the income if all 100 were to be leased? That is your top line gross income. Then obviously you have to take out the revenue from the 50 units. That is your vacancy. Your 50 units are vacant, so you take that out, and then you come to the number, which is, I forget the name, gross income vacancy.
Oh. My gosh. I don't remember it either.
Then you come
Like
to
net,
your,
isn't it like?
yeah. Then
Well,
you
no,
come
that's
to your,
not NOI, but
net revenue.
yes.
And then you have your expenses. That is called your operating expenses because these are the expenses which goes into running your building. It doesn't have to be just a building. Hotel is a very different concept because there is an asset, and hotel is a business more than just a real estate. It's not like a tenant comes in and he's going to stay with me for a year. I have the lease in place. If he has to leave, he has to pay me in full before he leaves. It is very hard to break your lease, especially in New York City.
Yeah.
Like, you would rather die than break your lease. But in a hotel, it's like everyday turn, right? Again, it's different. We call something the ADR, average daily rate. There are like, and it's seasonal. There is like summers, it will peak, and then, I don't know, in some location, it may peak in winters where you go skiing. It is very different. There's business, and then there's real estate asset. So, yeah.
And then eventually, like NOI, that's kind of so NOI is kind of the final number you get after you calculate all the things that make you money and all the things that you have to spend to run the business. So NOI is an indicator of how well the property is performing. So if you're able to lease all 100 units in your apartment building and you've rented 100 parking spaces and, you have 100 pet fees because everyone has a dog these days. Yes, exactly. A lot of buildings charge you for that too now. So if you're able to hit all of those metrics and you're making the most money that, that asset can produce, after you've subtracted all of the costs, your costs they might fluctuate a little bit, but for the most part, they're easy to predict and easy to track how much it costs to run the property. That bottom number is going to be your NOI. And again, the lenders are going to say, we need to see your NOI. We don't really care about how much you could make. We don't really care about the potential. If you're getting a loan now for this property, what is it making today? And that's your NOI.
And how do you come up with the NOI, right? Like, you don't know, you've not built the property, you've not rented it out, you don't know how much people are going to pay. That's when the market study comes in handy. You need to have a very good knowledge of the market. You need to know, if you think to yourself, okay, I'm going to build this residential building, you need to know all the residential buildings in your area and how much they are charging. That's how you like build out an underwriting model even before you build the project, to see if the numbers make sense. So you need to be very well aware of the market and the demand and what they're charging today.
And to this point, this is more like a real life anecdote. So in my last job, I was working with someone who wanted to develop a hotel in Atlanta, and they had done all the market research, and they found this spot that they really liked. It looked great. It was going to be this really nice boutique, I would stay there. Okay, so very, very nice. And I was speaking, they were looking to raise equity. And again, like we said, equity is very hard to raise. It's so much harder for a hospitality property, because there are so many uncertainties when it comes to hotels. And I was talking to someone that I knew who was also from Atlanta, and he knew, I didn't go to Atlanta, so I didn't know, but he was like, do you know that 2 blocks away, a similar hotel in 2011 went totally bankrupt, and it was like a whole scandal in Atlanta, this whole thing. So that's where knowing your market is absolutely critical. And maybe at that time, the person I was working with, maybe he didn't know about that hotel, but people will know, and they will remember when a project goes wrong if they see that project again. So if you want to do something that's even harder to secure financing for, you have to make sure that the area is going to support that investment and that strategy. So that's just a little anecdote on how we see this play out every single day, probably multiple times a day. Okay, and now a little bit on equity. So we went over some of the debt terms. We have 2 main ones here for equity. One is what we call an equity multiple, and the other one is called the internal rate of return. So equity multiple, the way I look at it, is your equity multiple is a number that you calculate upon exiting an investment. So let's say here, we have our example here. Let's say that I invest $50,000 into one of your projects in equity. Okay. Once you've sold it or you've exited, whatever it may be, if I make $100,000 from that investment, that is basically 2x equity multiple. I have doubled my initial investment. And remember, that's a lot more money than the lender is making off it. But again, it's riskier for me because I have to have faith that over 10 years, you are going to grow my $50,000 into $100,000. Now, that's upon, like, we're done with the investment, that's that. Internal rate of return tracks how much your equity investment is making over the course that you're holding the property. So we're looking here, IRR 15%. It measures the yearly return, of your cash flows. And it shows how fast your investment is growing. So let's say in the first year let's go back to a hotel example. Let's say in the first year of this hotel, you're doing fine. Maybe, you're not super happy, but then it's the FIFA World Cup. And they're here in Philly, they're in Atlanta, there's some event. Suddenly that hotel is booked. You can't get rooms and they're $1,000 a night. Okay, well, maybe when I made the investment, I didn't know that FIFA would be in Philly or in Atlanta. The internal rate of return for that year or whenever that change happens has shifted. So that's how you track over time. So I don't know if there's any.
I think
Yeah, okay. Okay, so now we prepared 2 case studies for you. The first one is the acquisition of a laundromat. And we wanted to frame it from the lens of us being lenders, what we would need to see in underwriting, what we would want you, the borrower, to know. And we would go, so a laundromat. You can call it out, but what is a way a laundromat makes money? Like, what is one thing that they do? Like, dry cleaning is an example. Okay, so they charge for dry cleaning. You go in, you put your quarters in. Okay, you'd swipe your credit card. These are all ways that they make money. Laundromats have vending machines. Guess what? That's another way that they make money. So there are many ways that, and you don't even think about it, but A business like a laundromat, maybe I don't know why they would charge for parking, but maybe they do. Or they charge a delivery fee, to deliver your laundry to your house. These are all ways that a laundromat can make money. A lender, let's say it's me, I'm going to need to see exactly how much money this laundromat makes by doing those activities. I need to understand how much they make every month. Does it change during the winter? Maybe people are dry cleaning less. Maybe they're dry cleaning more. We need to see all of that. So here we have our monthly revenue. Okay, wash, dry. Maybe it's there's no other laundromats in the neighborhood. It's making $12,000. Wash and fold, that means you drop your laundry off and someone does it for you and you pay them to do so. And these are, hypothetical numbers, but $4,500. Dry cleaning, vending, ATM fees, maybe they're cash only. They put an ATM, they charge you $5 every time you use it. Okay, a little game, an arcade. So look, you're making roughly, let's call it $17,700 a month. Okay, so now, how much does it cost? So so the acquisition, we're looking at total, you have to rehab it, okay. This is the number that we're looking at, $674,150. And these, look at how many costs you have versus how many ways you can make money. Okay, your machine breaks, you have to call a specialist in. You have very high water bill, you have high electric bill. You have to put the machines in for the vending and the arcade and whatever else you want. So there are so many, basically fees that you have to pay to keep this thing running every single month. So, I don't know if you wanted to.
Yeah. So these are basically the costs. Let's say you buy an empty retail box, there's nothing in it. You have to put in the roof and the electrical, the water, HVAC, and windows, carpentry, whatever have you, drywalls, machine setup, you have to buy the machines. You have to build out this whole setup internally. So that plus your acquisition to buy that empty retail box, let's say this is an empty box, to buy this you need to pay $250,000, and then to turn this room into a laundromat you have another $400,000 of costs to make it a working laundromat. And then obviously you have 4 types of income here. It could be more or less depending on what you want to do. And then here you have, we call it the pro forma, where you say, okay, that's my top line item, that's how much I make monthly. If it doesn't mean your machine washes producing 12,000 revenue every single month. It could vary, but that's the highest potential that it could make every month. So that's your gross income. And then less loss. It did not make 12,000 that month, it made 10,000. 2,000 is a loss. Then you put in the loss. Then your effective gross income. And then comes your operating expenses, where there is a fee to manage this, the whole laundromat business and look after your whole, setup here. Then you always have to pay real estate taxes and insurance for sure. That is, however much depends on the city, where you are, what kind of business you're doing, and how big is your business, how much income it is producing, everything. And then you have labor. Maybe you hire 1 or 2 people to help with the operations every day. They do the dry cleaning or whatever, you have to pay them. And then you have some repairs and maintenance. Your machines could break down, lights could go out, anything could happen. You need to have some cost set aside for that. Doesn't mean you use it every month, but you need to have that in the reserve. And then there are supplies, I don't know, detergent or anything else that you need for dry cleaning. Then obviously there's trash removal, whatever. After all these operating costs every month, and the loss that you incurred, that okay, it only made 12,000, there's a 2,000 loss, you come to total, your NOI is only 46,000. Sorry, 144,000. And then you have your debt service. This is what you get in hand after you pay all the operational costs. Then you have to pay your debt, because what's your debt here? It was 573K, and you're paying 66,000 every year for your debt. And then what's left for you is 77K. And your debt service coverage ratio is 2.1, which is great.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes, very good investment. So that's the kind of number that a lending partner or anything above 1.2, 1.2 is good. 2.17, like, wow. Yeah, that's great. So, and again, this is not based on a real laundromat. A lot of these are estimations, but this is what it would look like when you are considering a piece of real estate that is like this. Now, you're going to see a slightly different story when we go to multifamily. So, this is a multifamily hypothetical acquisition. This one is going to be a little bit more costly than the other one. So we're looking at total acquisition and construction costs of $666,000 and some change there. So we have 6 units, okay? So we have to figure out a strategy. They're all 1 beds, 1 baths. We have to figure out a strategy to rent them because that is ultimately how you make money in multifamily, okay? Like laundromats, people need to wash their clothes. So maybe there's a different argument on how, not that it's easier, but it's just a different type of asset and a different kind of income that you produce. Here, you have to look at what the market is commanding for a 1-bedroom. Is it $1,800? Is it $1,500? Maybe you have to provide some incentives to get people to sign up for a lease. You give them a month free. These are all factors that go into how much money you're making at the end of the day. So let's say that we're maxing out, like we're underwriting that we're leasing all of them on a yearly basis. When we look at all of the ways that you can make money, which again, pet fees, parking, there are things like that as well when it comes to multifamily, not just the rent. So what does it say for the gross income over there? 118? Okay, so in year 1, we're projecting that if we kind of max out and we do very, very well, we're going to make $118,000 in gross income. Maybe though, we have to underwrite that we're not going to rent all of the apartments very easily or the same way. Okay, so that comes out. We have all of our operating expenses, security, trash, again, taxes, insurance. A lot of these things, you can't avoid them. You have to pay them. All right, it costs you to run this apartment building. It's going to cost you $30,000 every single year. That leads, so you subtract, okay, so your NOI is $76,782. However, we're going back to our loan. So our loan, again, cost of capital, our interest rate is what it is. The interest rate here is 9.2, which I know, like, it's different now, so this would look a little bit different. But ultimately, you are cash flowing every year. This is going to make you $10,000 a year. So, it's just different strategies around this. The debt service, this is still, by the way, this is still a good deal. So the debt coverage ratio, 1.15. That is good. Okay, so you are making money, you can cover your loans, you have a little bit off the top, you're still producing returns on this property. And yeah, so that's basically the multifamily case. Anything else that I...
I mean, most people would love to do multifamily because the cash flows are very predictable, because once you sign the lease, you're going to have the cash flow for 12 months. In case of a hotel or a laundromat where it's a business, everyday business, you don't know what's tomorrow's going to be like. You could make all the money tomorrow or you could make nothing tomorrow. There is risk. But you could also there's also the upside to it. Okay, we projected 17,000. In some months you could probably make 20,000, who knows? There's both sides to it. But multifamily is most predictable and stable, so people like it.
Okay, so I think that kind of wraps up this part of our presentation. So we'd like to open it up to questions. First of all, thank you all for listening. It was a pleasure. And if anyone does have questions, I would ask maybe that we try to keep it more general so that everyone can derive value from the questions instead of like a specific thing that you're looking at or a piece of real estate, just to try to generalize it a little bit, if that's okay.
Yeah, and we're going to share their contact information.
Yes, absolutely.
Specific you want to talk about.
Absolutely.
There's got to be some questions in here. There you go.
In regards to the mezzanine loan, what kind of loan would that fall, or loan type would that fall under typically?
Like for what kind of property?
Yeah, so it's kind of like a holdover, right, between
Yes.
the actual loan that you're taking out and what's the
Yes.
So in that case, it's not a mortgage, so what
No.
kind of loan product would that typically be?
It's still, so we call it structured finance. So that kind of refers to something that hovers in between equity and debt. So in some cases, you may be assigned an interest rate on that the way you would be assigned a mortgage. Sometimes maybe they'll say at the end when you sell it, I want X percentage, or I want some money off the top of your profits. It does vary, but that type of product is generally available in commercial real estate. You're not constrained by what kind of asset class it is. So you can find people who will give you like pref, or we call it pref mezz for a hotel, for an apartment building, an office tower. So, but it kind of functions as like an in-between source of capital that's not quite debt and not quite equity. Of course. Yes, back there.
Yeah, when you say more in detail, prefer equity?
Yes. So do you want to?
Sure. So preferred equity basically acts like a debt, like I said. Generally they charge you like 11%. Sometimes they even charge you 15, 16% like interest rate on it. But you don't, since they call it equity, you don't pay these interests monthly like you do with the debt. Some people say if it is a 15% rate, they say 7% is accrued. You only pay 7% monthly, and then the rest of the other 7% is accrued till your property will start producing cash flow. Or sometimes the complete 15% is accrued. It depends. It's like I said, it's for mezzanine debt and preferred equity. The terms vary by who you go to, what company you go to. Everybody has their own terms and rules for that. Everybody is like looking at their, balance sheet and like how much money they want to make. It depends on them. But generally, that's the general structure. We call it current pay and accrued pay. There is both on it.
But there is not equity, like they don't share the upside of the deal.
No, they just take their preferred returns. Again, equity is very fluid. There are some terms, like we read term sheets every day for different projects. You pay current pay, then there's accrued pay, then they also would want some of the profits when you sell your property at exit. We call it the waterfall. So it shows like, okay, in tier 1, how much you paid, 2, 3, like that. Yeah. But so that you need to be educated, like make sure how much you're paying in current pay, accrued pay, and on top of it, if they're asking for the profit at exit, like you need to look at that, like pick the best terms. That's part of our job, right, to get our clients the best terms that they could possibly get.
And that makes most sense for their project.
Yeah.
And again, one last point to the preferred piece. They're typically used in scenarios where there's a gap in funding. So we don't see that in every deal. We see it when, for some reason, the equity piece is missing. So where we wind up using this product is if the valuation, so if your valuation decreases, which we're seeing even in Philadelphia, the valuation of office buildings in Philly are going down. So your loan is the same. The bank is not going to say you have to pay us less money because the property value has gone down. They're going to say you still owe us $1 million, and when we gave you the $1 million, it was worth $4 million. Now the market is saying that your property is worth $1.5 million. So you still need to figure out how to reach that $4 million, and that's where this instrument comes into play most of the time. So it's to make up for some sort of gap in that we typically see when the valuation of a property comes down.
And again, remember the loan to cost we talked about, 65% to 75%. Both your senior mortgage or senior debt and your mezzanine debt or preferred equity needs to be within that bracket. It's not like, okay, I will get 75% senior loan and then on top of it, I'm going to get the preferred or the mezzanine. No, it's within that 75%, you have both. Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
So your products are geared towards like $1 million or if I came here, I said I have a $300,000.
It's like you should be giving this speech.
If I had a $300,000 project,
Yeah.
do you guys look at that, or how's that? Do you guys look at something like that?
Well, we typically work with more institutional partners. So the people who would come to us are, maybe they have 6,000 like apartments that they manage, and they're looking to. So that could be 10 buildings, that could be 600 buildings. Let's just say that they have 6,000 apartment buildings that they manage. And they're looking to us because maybe their lending relationship, the bank that they use doesn't exist anymore. We see that all the time. So they don't have a lending partner. So they come to us because we have our pulse on who's lending in which jurisdiction and for what property type. So that could be a scenario. But typically our clients are those who they have more what we call like an institutional track record, meaning maybe they're in multiple cities, or maybe they're only in one city, but they have a wide presence in that city. And they're very well known, like, you know, maybe they're a developer and they've done a lot of development work, and we can show a track record. That's kind of how we look at our clientele.
Kevin, for your $300,000 project.
No, because I'm getting the feeling that what she just said is like you're talking about the minimum size of your projects or what?
So the least we would look at would be 15 million, which is very rare. We are generally, you know, like 30 million and above.
That's the minimum project.
Yeah, like that's what people are, because we want to do bigger deals because yeah.
But
I'm sure he can help you.
I just want to chime in. Like, it's so cool how like you guys clearly work at a higher level, but so much of the concepts are exactly the same. Like
Yes.
when we look at Jumpstart loans. Like,
Exactly.
Doesn't matter if it's a 100-unit building in New York City or
Right.
a duplex in Germantown, right? The
Right.
numbers are ran the same way.
Right.
Which I think is the value of having people like this.
Let me ask you another question. So you talk about marketing, whatever project you have.
Yep.
You said we should. How do you do the marketing? If we come to you with a project and say, hey, listen, this thing is, we think is going to make this money, but you say you run the numbers too. So how do you do the marketing?
So generally, developers like yourself are very ambitious, let's say. They're very ambitious. Every developer with an idea, everybody thinks this is the best project on planet Earth and this is going to make $10 million in revenue. But it does not. Because you're now looking at the market the way we do. Because you're one developer who's only looking at Philadelphia and one project. And we look at hundreds of you and hundreds of those projects. So we actually know what makes sense and what will be more agreeable to lenders and how to present it. We cut your projections down to match the market levels and also to match the lender or investor expectations so that it does not look crazy.
So how do you do your mark? How do you cut it? How do you make it?
So-
How do you bring the reality to a project? What information do you get to bring, or what sources do you have to bring reality to a project?
So that's the whole part of our firm, right? It's a relationship business. We are a capital markets firm. So we know everybody in the capital market space, investors, lenders, institutional. Again, it's not just banks who give you debt, right? Yes, for smaller scale businesses or projects, yes, it's just banks. But when you're looking at 30 million and above, we also raise funds, not just single asset, financing. Currently we're trying to raise like a $300 million fund, like a programmatic JV equity fund for a hotel developer in New York City. Fund meaning they are planning to acquire 5 to 6 hotels in New York City over the next 10 years, and they want one single partner who would be there with them as support that mission. So that's a fund. So we are trying to do that too. So that's like one type of investor, right? Then there are asset-wise, then there are investors who says, okay, I only have $5 million. I will be like a limited partner, but I still want to invest. We know them too. Then there are huge debts where there is like debt funds, like I said. We mostly work with debt funds because they give like large loans, and they also charge more than banks, yes, but they also give large loans, which works for our institutional clients. Then there are credit unions too,
Right.
other than banks, pension funds, life insurance companies.
Yes.
There's like so many of these people who has capital. We know all of them.
Right.
Or most of them. I can't say all, but yes.
Yes. And I think when we work, whether it's for a single acquisition or, a large scale project, what our job is to secure the best terms for you. And this is true. You can by the way, anyone can hire a mortgage broker for their own personal family home, and they will do the same thing. They're going to go to TD, and that's one of the things that we mean by marketing. They're going to go to TD, they're going to say, look, I'm working with this great guy. He does XYZ for work. He's looking to buy his family home. What's the best you can give me? Okay, so maybe the best is a $300,000 loan on this house, and the rate is 6.5%. Okay, so then the mortgage, this broker that you've hired just for yourself is going to go to Chase Bank and say, hey, I know a great guy, same thing. This is what he does, this is this. What's the best you can do? Well, Chase might say we can give him $335,000 at a 6.1% interest rate. So now you suddenly have two options, and you have the freedom of choice to decide, okay, this one, Chase, is a little bit cheaper for me, and they're also giving me more money on the mortgage. So that's kind of what we do as well. It looks a little bit differently because it's not necessarily a single family home that we're buying, but this is a service that any individual can also use for a mortgage on their home. And this is not only limited, this service that we do is not only limited to large institutions. So there are people who do this for a living on the residential side as well. And ultimately the end goal is, you've hired us, you've put faith in us that we're going to go and find you the best deal. And our job then to you, we have an obligation to you. Our obligation to you as our client is to say, I went to 3 banks, I went to 4 banks, I went to 5 banks. This is what they're willing to give you to finance the purchase of your personal home. This is the interest rate. Maybe we'll say we think you should take this one for XYZ reasons, but ultimately we want to make sure that you're informed of all of your choices. And this holds true, and again, it's like the crossover is very, very similar. This holds true whether it's, again, individual homeownership or the biggest real estate group you could think of who is doing the same thing. And a lot of these terms are the same. A lot of the ways that we talk about these numbers is the same. So that's, yes.
This goes all the way back.
Yeah.
At the risk of being oversimplistic.
There's no risk of that.
So, am I right when you're talking about debt versus equity?
Yeah.
Something like Shark Tank, where that's mainly equity play, where Mr. Wonderful tends to be the financing guy. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm on the
Yes.
same page there.
Yes.
Because I'm thinking, well, why would you ever want to give somebody 20%?
Right.
But when you're looking at it from a business perspective,
Right.
versus straight up
Right.
multifamily, where you're getting, direct cash flow. it
Exactly.
makes sense. So with that knowledge,
Right.
even though this gentleman asked it well and he answered it well, I still am not 100% clear on the 75% of the mezzanine and
Yes.
the senior debt.
Yes.
How would you combine those two specifically in a multifamily example, if you don't mind?
Sure, not at all. So I'll start and then you can,
Actually,
yes.
so with both facets.
Yes. So basically when we're looking at, a long time ago, an investment banker told me that sometimes you have to look at numbers and sometimes you have to look at percentages. So when you're looking at the percentages here, the percentage is a reflection on the debt side, that is a reflection of risk. So is the percentage of equity. The higher levered, meaning the higher your loan amount is relative to the asset, it's riskier. So we're looking at kind of like, when you are investing in real estate, you should be focused on how you can mitigate as many risks as you can, because there are so many unknowns, especially if you're new to the industry, you're new to a market, whatever the case may be. There are so many unknowns. So if you take on too much leverage, you assume the risk that you will not be able to pay that loan back over time. So that's where equity comes in. However, those two pieces in the middle of the pyramid, they have a dual role where sometimes they work as equity, meaning it's not always, again, pref is a little bit different, but it might not be like a mortgage that you pay back every month. And that's where it depends on who the partner is. And again, this is more of a sophisticated instrument that we see come up more so in institutional type of deals where maybe it's not easy for them. They're missing $10 million and they can't come up with that so easily, or more than 10. I mean, it could be, like we're looking at $100 million deals, not so much in that they're missing $100 million, but it comes up in very specific instances. So I think when you're starting out in real estate and learning how to acquire a property and manage it properly, you have to look at your down payment as the equity. And if you need more equity, that's where friends and family come in. You go to your community, you fundraise, whatever the case may be, and then you have the debt.
Okay.
Yeah. So
the down payment is primarily.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That clarity is.
Yes. Exactly. Yes.
Not clear.
Yes. So down payment here, exactly. That's what we call equity. Exactly. Because remember, it's your cash. You've saved up for 10 years or whatever the case may be. You want to buy a house, you want to buy an apartment building. That down payment is the money that's been sitting in your bank account. Maybe you're growing, maybe you're investing it. Ultimately, you're making the investment to put your equity into this piece of real estate. Yes.
We probably have time for one more question. Laura.
You mentioned products that say you needed $25 million. No, you needed 21, but you were able to get 25. And you paid the 21 off, and you had that other remaining.
Oh, the interest reserves.
Interest reserves.
Interest reserve.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you.